Marvel actually did it. They were able to make a show that was good from beginning, middle, and end. And I am so surprised. Hey there, this is your Matt Doodle with Too Much Time on His Hands. Doodle here with another video. And today, I'd like to talk about the X-Men 97 show and how it turned me into a fan of the X-Men. Now, I'm not saying I didn't like the X-Men beforehand. I did. But they were just a team that was in Marvel to me. It wasn't something like the Avengers or, I guess, for DC, Justice League for me. It was just a team that exists. Like, I understood what the X-Men were supposed to be about. They were supposed to be about, an allegory for oppression and how to deal with it. Like, I knew that's what it was. I had some X-Men comics, but, I didn't have that many, because again, it was never really something that appealed to me. It was a big group, and the roster always consistently changed over and over. And the only real interpretation of the X-Men that I actually grew up with, that actually, made me aware of the X-Men, that made me like the X-Men, but not love it, was the Fox movie universe. I watched all the movies from them, and they always just felt like Wolverine movies than anything else. And I already like Wolverine. He's a very cool character. But that was about it. I did not really care for other characters. Like, I like the idea of Cyclops. The thing is, I would know about the reputation that these characters would have. Cyclops being the leader. Jean being, the telepath, the strong mother figure of the group. Beast being the smart guy. Aurora being basically the god of the group. Wolverine basically being the little beast of a character he is in the show. But because I never really got to see that completely in the, in animation or movie format. It didn't really felt real. Like, the only other X-Men show that I saw was Wolverine and the X-Men. And guess who was the leader? Wolverine. Cyclops was supposed to be the leader, but apparently he wasn't in this one. Okay. There was X-Men Evolution, but I never saw that. And I never watched the original 90s X-Men show. So I never really had nostalgia for it. So when this X-Men show was being announced, I was kind of like, huh? They're bringing back the 90s show? That's interesting. I was hopeful. And I was like, oh, cool. Maybe they'll get back to 2D animation. Nope. It's a 3D model that looks like 2D. And I was like, no, they're going to modernize the 90s show. And they're going to make it really weird. And I was worried. But then when I saw, clips of the X-Men show's animation, I was like, excuse me, that a 3D model? Huh? And that was just so interesting. Oh, I almost forgot. I should mention this has spoilers. I completely forgot because this show was so good. I just need to talk about what I enjoyed. So when I saw the animation, I was like, a little more hooked. The fact that they were showing Cyclops more than they were Wolverine, which was really refreshing, and showing everyone else was extremely refreshing. Now, you may be asking, if you don't really like the X-Men, you never really grew up with the original series, how would you enjoy this show? Well, actually, this show is actually really good at easing you into this universe. Now, just because I didn't know about the original 90s X-Men show does not mean I don't know the lore of the X-Men. I would probably more understand the lore than I actually did the actual comics themselves because of how complicated the X-Men are with time travel or dimension travel, clones, things like that. And you may be saying, isn't that kind of normal for comics? It is. But again, this is a group that constantly changes, so that becomes way too much to me. But this show, if you know the X-Men and you know the basic character ideas of them, you kind of get an idea of them. And if you don't, you can look it up, or the show will kind of tell you or elude you and kind of make you aware of the characters. Like, one of my favorite things that this show did was make Cyclops the most badass characters ever. Like, in episode 1, they wanted to show you how cool Cyclops is. They wanted to show you how his optic blast works. Those are not lasers. Those are basically punch beams. They are basically like sound barriers pushing that just happen to be red. That's why he was able to move around in such a cool fashion. And that was all in the first episode. They were able to show that. They showed the rest of the X-Men showing what they can do. And they immediately changed, the type of dynamic by, having Xavier be dead. Even though, if you know the original series, he definitely just kind of went into space. I kind of knew that already going in because I would hear the actual, story of the 90s show. I didn't want to watch it, so I just kind of would hear people talk about it. So I know about that. The fact that Jean, or I guess at this point Madeline, was pregnant with Nathan, I knew what kind of story they were going to go with. Because again, I knew about the X-Men, I knew about their stories. Like, oh, like these are cool, but how is they going to do this? Because I knew that the show was not going to be as long. But this is another thing I really love about the show. They were able to condense so many stories that the comics had like so many different wild things going on that were so convoluted, that'd be so complicated. And because the 90s show already had so many storylines that they already did, we didn't have to worry about that. We didn't have to see the Phoenix story anymore because that already happened in 90s show. Or like the Days of Future Past story. Because of stories like that already being done in 90s shows, we got to see newer stories. Like the whole Madeline and Jean thing, of the clone, or with the Goblin Queen as Madeline. And excuse me, I'm so sorry. That outfit was something else. But the fact that, they were able to condense a certain story that was also made Cyclops look like an extreme douche and just made him look very messy. And that's another thing I love about this show. The fact that they went back to the roots of the X-Men, that it's just a giant soap drama of people with abilities just trying to survive from oppression, which is also another thing I enjoyed. What I missed about the X-Men is showing the allegory for oppression that the X-Men usually have to deal with. I enjoyed the Fox X-Men movies, but it felt like it was more just bad guys versus good guys. Evil mutants versus good mutants, and that's about it. That's how it felt like for me. And the fact that it was never colorful, I'll explain that in a little bit, because this show says, you know what, screw that. We are being colorful as hell. Like the fact that whenever they use their abilities, it was always done in color. Such amazing powers. Like even Jean, who is basically just a telepath. You don't even really need to show that she used her power. No, they got a nice tint of her powers. You got Cyclops using a big blast with his optic beams. You got people moving so well. You got Morph, which was a character created for the 90s, be able to morph into characters for a cameo fest, basically, for us. And that was awesome. And Wolverine, thank God they put him in the freaking background. I love Wolverine, but I am tired. They've put him in every X-Men show, which again made me just a Wolverine fan than anything. I didn't care about anyone else, just Wolverine. But this one is like, no, Wolverine, you can stay in your corner. We'll put you in when you need cool scenes. They were able to make me a fan of Gambit. I never even cared about Gambit before this show. I was like, you mean the guy that throws cards? Oh, I didn't know this guy was just super awesome. You know what? They even made me a fan of the little headband thing that he has. I used to think that was so stupid. His black eyes were always so weird to me. Now in the show, I'm like, excuse me, can I cosplay as this dude? This dude is so awesome. His love between Rogue, which again also made me a fan of Rogue, because I only knew her from the Fox show, and that's not the Fox movie, and that's not how she even supposed to be. And as soon as I'm starting to really like Gambit and Rogue's relationship, they take it away from us with Magneto getting involved in his whole situation with Rogue. And then they do us dirty with Gambit's death.
The name's Gambit, mon ami. Remember it.
So seeing all these people come together, be shown in a positive light with all their flaws, all their insecurities, and still show them as a superhero team, as a family. And that's another thing that I miss about the X-Men. They're supposed to be a family, not just a team like the Avengers. They're supposed to be like a bigger version of the Fantastic Four. That's what I miss. The familiar aspect of the X-Men. And this show made me such a fan of the X-Men that I even made a parallel between autism and the X-Men in a video that I made, because it was Autism Acceptance Month. I became more of a fan of the X-Men because I was able to see myself through more of them because of the oppression part that I understand more. Some people won't get it as much, but as someone who is autistic and Latino Mexican, I can see it in there more than they used to show it. So it made me be able to relate. That's another thing that I haven't seen from the X-Men. I was able to relate to them. I was able to relate to why they needed things, why they needed to hide, why they need to push, why they have color. What I love about this show too, when I meant by the costumes, is that they were able to actually explain why they wore color. It's basically kind of like, how people in Pride wear a bunch of color, the rainbow, as, saying, we're here, we're alive. That's what I see the X-Men wearing. Being like, we are here. We are proud. The yellow and blue. That's what the color is for, saying that we're out and proud, basically. And because the X-Men are more colorful here, they're able to actually slap back at the old Fox X-Men movies with the best line ever.
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
Am I going to war or a circus?
What'd you expect? Black leather?
So, seeing all the allegory that this show does allowed me to relate it a little bit more, that I made me enjoy. And I'm curious, were you able to relate to any, prejudice in this show? From like the executioner, the way he said, like,
Know what I hate about your kind? You act like you got it so bad. Normal people have it hard too. Harder. We just have the dignity not to whine about it. You see? It's the whining. I hate your whining just as much as I hate you.
And it made me think of all those haters that you see on Twitter, which leads me into the whole, people who you find out who are not actual fans of X-Men, or mutants, because they would be like, there's no politics in our comics, and the comics have always had politics. They've always had that. That's the point of superheroes. They are literally a force of helping people when, the system was not always able to help. At least from my point of view. If you disagree, I understand that. But they are literally political. During the 60s, they were an allegory for, race, for sexuality in the 60s. And that became more later on. And I know originally people were going to say that, oh no, they weren't originally they were originally people with superpowers. Yeah, but they evolved. And they became more because of it. And that's what I think people enjoy about superheroes, the fact that you were able to relate. Why do you think a lot of people tend to like Spider-Man a lot? Because you're able to relate to his struggles, to who he is as a person. Yes, you can enjoy his powers, but what you come back for is the person. And that's what I liked about the 97. They were able to show us the person underneath the colorful costume and show us they are just people with flaws, but they were also superheroes. The thing I miss is that they're unapologetically super. Yes, they will be bad, they'll be good, but they will also be people just trying to do their best. They're not all just cynical. Yes, the show has cynical parts, which I love too. But they also show that they have to push past, they have to be perfect to show as good people. And that's what I love about the show so much. But what about you? What do you think about the show? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Was the show for you? Were you able to see the prejudice in your own opinion throughout the show? Your own way to relate to it? Please let me know in the comments down below. I read all your comments and will happily respond to any questions you have, depending on the show. And if you're still here at the end, thank you so much. If you like this entire video, please like it, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let me know what kind of videos you would like. And if you want to follow me on anything else, I am on X, Threads, Instagram, all under the name capital Doodle _ capital Might on everything else except here, which is just, Doodle Might. I have some stuff on Instagram that I would like you to see, because I am trying to make a costume that I think people know about. And if you don't, yes, I'm trying to make a full-on Doodle Might costume that was supposed to be for my 1,000 subscriber milestone, but I didn't know how hard it was actually going to be, and it took longer, and we're already at 1.11, which is awesome and something I never really expected. But I wanted to let you know, if you want to see certain images that I only have on Instagram, go follow me there. And if there's nothing else, this has been Doodle Might, and I hope everyone stays nerdy, and I hope everyone has a good day.